It's a brawler game. It's going to be a first-person brawler game to start with, okay? And you're going to, of course, be playing all these characters that are going to be coming at you, okay? Of course, we have rights to several of the characters that you mentioned, including a lot of the UFC stars, et cetera, which are going to be coming. They're not going to be released immediately.
Nerd Reactor, roll out.
I'm John Nguyen from Nerd Reactor. I'm here with Dimitri, I would say kickboxer extraordinaire, and you have a long list of just filmography from whether it's producing to writing to directing, and you have a lot of projects coming up.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate it. Yes, I guess I have a long filmography. One of my favorites, of course, has been Kickboxer. I was fortunate enough to get involved and acquire the rights to make a reboot about 10 years ago in Kickboxer Vengeance, which was a total reboot of the story. And then I worked very, very hard to get Jean-Claude Van Damme to be in it, which I felt he really should be the mentor that ended up handing off the reins to Alan Musi, who was a six-degree jiu-jitsu master. And that project did very, very well. And you know what's really funny about the Kickboxer franchise? When they first made Kickboxer way before my time, in 1989 with Jean-Claude, it was kind of trashed. It was interesting. It was a martial arts film. It was this, that. Then, of course, as it seasoned, it became a pop culture, iconic, classic martial arts film. One of the best. And it's interesting because, I knew the guys that also brought Enter the Dragon to America, the producers that brought Enter the Dragon. They had the toughest time selling the movie. And then suddenly, you get it sold and you get it really, because, the studio executives that would watch the movies, they'd go, what is this? It's martial arts. Does anybody care? Are the Western audiences going to care? Here we are today, and clearly the Western audiences do care.
Oh yeah.
And they care in a big way. And, I was a two-time black belt. I was a black belt in Tang Sudo and a black belt in Kempo back in the day in my 20s. And I love martial arts. I mean, there's nothing like it.
Oh yeah.
And,
Like
and,
now
and
we
you know,
have
go
Cobra
ahead.
Kai, we have John Wick, we have even movies like The Raid 1 and 2 that just cross boundaries and people everywhere enjoys those. So it doesn't matter whether it's like a Western audience, Eastern audience, if you deliver something that's just really kick-ass action and also like a really cool protagonist, I think people are just gonna tune in.
Well, remember, so your protagonist is got a code, and that code is bigger than him. He always protects family, he always protects friends, he protects and he does the right thing. And that code goes all the way back to the Westerns when they used to make Westerns. And so he's the kind of guy, I always say to everybody, we all have bullies in our lives. And those bullies come in different variations. Perhaps it's a boss where you are just subjugating yourself to something you don't really want to be doing. Or perhaps it's somebody else in your life that used to be a friend and they're forcing you to do this, that, and the other thing. In our genre, when this particular leading man or woman doesn't like what's happening, they'll punch you in the face. they'll take they'll take matters into their own hands and they'll do the right thing. Okay. And you can't really fault that protagonist. Interestingly enough, I find now, of course, in the last 15 years, you see the superhero movies and you see all these superheroes with all these superpowers doing martial arts. And if really you got to think to yourself, well, what do they need that for? I mean, they purportedly could fly through buildings and throw somebody, into space. So I don't really understand what they need the martial arts for. But martial arts are wonderful to watch.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't know. Have you've seen Shang Chi, right?
Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah, because like the martial arts aspect for that one for me is my favorite part, and then I still like the superpowers with the rings, but the first half with the bus fight, like that's when it's keeping grounded. That's like my favorite part.
Sure.
Yeah, but
Sure. And
go ahead.
the Donnie Yen trilogies. I
Yeah.
mean, I just love, Ip Man. I mean, I just think that those are the very first one, of course, is amazing to me. It's an epic, and again, it's got the same exact, the leading man has a code, and the code is supposed to be bigger than him,
Oh yeah.
and he's supposed to do what he needs to do to protect the people. So, it's very easy to push that code across. So I love martial arts films. Of course, the kind of stuff that I do is cinematic. I try to stay away from grappling and things like that. I have guys flying through the air, and
Yeah.
it works.
You want to do like a 5 minute scene of an armbar takedown?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, I love watching that. I
Yeah.
love watching UFC stuff, but it's not cinematic.
Oh yeah.
They've tried to pull off really major UFC movies, and they've been wonderful with wonderful actors. It's very difficult when you don't have that cinematic flair,
Oh
I
yeah.
think.
But Dimitri, I want to know like just the behind the scenes of you trying to acquire the rights for her Kickboxer. What was that like? Was there like any challenges? And is it like because whenever I'm thinking about these rights and then the origin story, I was like, let's make a movie out of this. I don't know if you heard of like the Tetris. They made a movie about the guy that's trying to bring
Oh yeah.
Tetris to the world. So I feel
Well,
like
I,
this could
I
be a
mean,
movie.
I had a wonderful manager who called me out of the blue, who passed away recently, unfortunately, of cancer. But he was a wonderful manager. He called me out of the blue and he said, "Listen," he goes, "there's these guys that have this company, and there's a bunch of titles in the company that are up for remake, and one of them I know you'll spark to, which is Kickboxer." And my reaction to him was, "Oh, come on, Peter, you're full of shit. Forget it." I said, "That's all nonsense. There's no way." Because people had brought me before Bloodsport, and the rights were very, very complicated. They were tied in with studios, et cetera, et cetera. I just wasn't interested in taking that on. And so I got involved, and he convinced me to go talk to these guys, and they really did have this company, and they really did have the rights. And so we made a play, and we were fortunate enough to get it figured out. At the same time, they had a movie for remake called All of Me with Steve Martin and Lily Tomlin. I got that set up at Universal with Steven Spielberg's old company over there. And at the same time, I was working on a remake of Kickboxer, and we got Kickboxer made first. And it was very on again, off again with Jean-Claude Van Damme because he was not that interested in stepping back into a Kickboxer franchise, which is one of his signature films along with Bloodsport, and making it something bad. Okay. And I assured him, I said, "Listen to me." I said, "I'm not interested in that." I said, "I have a lot of passion for this project, and I have a lot of passion for the style of this project. And if you just trust me, I'm telling you right now," I said, "myself and my writing partner wrote a wonderful script, and you should take a look at it." And we went back and forth, and then I met with him when he was living here in the marina, and I sat down with him, and he had a lot of really wonderful notes. He really does know his genre very well. And so we incorporated those notes. And then if you see the first Kickboxer, he got himself in incredible shape. Um, and he showed up. And then, it did very, very well. And so we came up with a sequel. And the sequel, I think you'll see now, I think, what is it? It's 92% critics, which I never expect critics to like our martial arts films.
Uh,
And I think it's 80 something, 82, 84% audiences around the world on Rotten Tomatoes. That's
yeah, I
right
believe the
up there
critics in the
with,
'90s. Yeah.
yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, but
I
yeah,
mean,
with that, with retaliation and also vengeance, you're bringing these like Dave Batista, Gina Carano, and Mike Tyson. So I feel like for you, this is heaven. It's just bringing these guys, getting to make them fight like Mike Tyson versus Jean Claude Van Damme or Christopher Lambert versus Jean Claude. So what was that like, just being on the set, doing that feeling of them?
it was great. I mean, it's great. And, look, Mike is wonderful to work with. What's really interesting about all these people is they're some of the nicest people you'll ever work with. People that have nothing to prove. You're one of best boxers that ever lived, you tend to be, he was a sweetheart. And we sat in the video tent. We talked a lot about his character, and he was very, very interested in doing some cool stuff. Our leading man, he did the sequence that I think you might have seen, where he meets him for the first time in the prison, and he's going down this hallway, and Mike Tyson is sitting there swinging at him and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And at his age, he actually clipped him.
Oh
Alon's
no.
very quick. He's very quick, and he's very agile, and he clipped him accidentally. And hit him right in the jaw. And Alon starts running around going, I got hit by Mike Tyson. I got hit by Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson actually hit me.
That's a cool flex. Like Mike Tyson hit me, and I lived to tell the tale.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, so when we did Kickboxer Retaliation, of course, I had half Thor Bjorgensen in it, who was the strongest man in the world. And he weighed in at 400, the Mountain from Game of Thrones. And he
Oh
weighed
yeah.
in at 425 pounds. And Alon is fearless, right? So he says to me, he goes, listen, he goes, during this opening fight sequence between me and him at the very end, he goes, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rush him. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, I'm going to rush him. I'm going to drop my shoulder. And he said, and we're just going to smash into each other. And I said, you're kidding, right? I said, have you seen this guy? And he said, no, no, no. He goes, it'll be fine. So he runs at him full bore. I yell action. He hits Thor. It was as if a gnat hit Thor in the shoulder, like nothing happened. And I said to Thor on the very next take, I go, can you pick him up and just throw him across the ring? He goes, sure. So if you notice, he picks him up and he tosses him across the ring as if Alon was, a carry-on suitcase.
But Elon knew he was getting himself into that, right? Like, all right, I'm
Oh,
down.
yeah. The crazy thing about Alon is he puts himself there. Like he sits there and he says, can we do it again? Can we do it again? I said, relax. What I don't need is I don't need you to break an arm or a leg while we're sitting there shooting a film, okay?
Oh
I
yeah.
said, we still have the rest of the film to shoot. But he's all for it. I mean, he's fearless.
Oh
So you
yeah.
got to love that.
Oh yeah. One of
Donnie
my
Yen's the
favorite.
same way too, by the way. Jackie Chan is the same way. I mean, they're fearless. So
And
gotta be
then pretty
careful with that.
soon you'll have them, Donnie Yen in Kickboxer 3, maybe.
I've got a special film for Donnie Yen that I'd love to
Oh yes.
from your mouth to God's ears.
Yes.
You know, I mean, come on, man. And John Wick, wasn't he incredible?
Oh, he was so good in that one as Kane. Yeah. And I
Come
want to
on.
talk.
I mean, eating that bowl of noodles right before he's about to take on everybody in the world, and he came up with that himself.
Yeah, yeah. That's how you know he's a badass. He was like, just give me a moment. Let me finish this. And then the
Yeah,
other guy's like, come on, you're gonna help us out. We're trying to beat these guys here.
the
He's like, all
guy's
right, I'm
hungry.
ready.
You gotta love it, man.
Yeah. And one of my favorite scenes, I want to talk about this, the one shot scene in Retaliation in the prison. That just feels very brutal. I'm pretty sure I know for a fact like it's like one of the toughest shots to film, just to make sure everyone's falling at the right spot, and just making sure while it's still safe and all that. So I want to know like your thoughts, like you're there filming it. What was that like?
Well, first of all, this Thai stunt team that we developed with the first Kickboxer is wonderful. And they've gone on to do some pretty big movies, including Gray Man and other really huge films. But they started with us. And we talked about a oneer. We're going to have a huge oneer coming up in Kickboxer 3. But they designed this oneer. And the problem with the oneer, if you're paying any attention, is that you've got to walk up the staircase backwards. Okay, I'm talking about the cameraman. And then you've got to hand the camera off to somebody on over the rails to another cameraman. Then you go along the rails, right, with a crane, and that follows that action. And then you hand the camera back to another cameraman who picks it up inside the rails of the landing. Then it goes back out again. And all this is supposed to be seamless. And what does he take out? I think he takes out 28
That's a
guys,
lot
I
of
think.
guys.
Yeah. And the wonderful thing about the Thais and my Thai stunt team is these guys want to get hit. In order to sell it, they want to get hit. They want to get the one guy, if you notice, as he comes up the staircase, he kicks him in the head. Okay. And there's another guy he kicks in the head. And in order to sell it, this is their decision. They want to get tapped in the head. Okay. So I think we did something like 4 takes. The cameramen were not able to pull it off because there was way too much action going on. And so the cameraman, my DP, a wonderful DP named Madrax, he says to me, he goes, "Why don't we hand the camera to the stunt coordinator? Because the stunt coordinator has designed this whole thing. And so you have the stunt coordinator pulling off, holding the camera during most of it. Okay. And I'm in take number 4. And the one guy who gets kicked in the head a lot, he comes to me and he says, listen, and he's like this, and he says, can this be the last one, boss? Because he said, I don't think I can take another kick.
Uh,
I
yeah,
said,
because
guys, we
those,
got to
yeah.
get it. We got to get it this time, But I
Those are
mean, you
brutal.
have to be very careful. The ties are brutal. I mean, they are brutal and really focused, and they want to make sure that it works. The one guy went flying off the staircase. Did you see that in the very opening? I think 14 feet. He hits the landing of the staircase, and then he goes flying down. We patted it as best we could, but for the most part, he was hitting wood.
Ugh, man, yeah, that looks rough. I'm like, how
Yeah.
do they do that? I feel like that's someone got hurt.
Yeah. Well, and so, what we try to do is we try to stay away from the wire work. We try to stay away from all that because luckily Alon can do a front aerial. He can do a back aerial. He weighs in at about 205 pounds, but he can move like any of the smaller martial artists in the world. He's just really, really, really agile.
Oh yeah. And I want to talk about the because we're talking about the video games, the Kickboxer video game, and also we can talk about Kickboxer. I don't know how much you can talk about these projects because they're like upcoming, and I know you want to try to keep certain things hush hush. But
Well, you tell me. You look at. You saw the announcement on the video game.
yeah.
We've been working on a video game for a while, and it was always finding the right partners.
Hmm.
And Force Multiplier Studios, who just released Carnivis, which I think is an island in Fortnite, the video game Fortnite. They came to us and they were very enthusiastic. Jeremy and Charnjit and Brent, and they were extremely enthusiastic about a kickboxer brawler game.
Hmm.
And what have they done? $3 billion in video game sales, I think, that they have worked on, created, redid, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and so they were the right guys. You always want to get involved with guys that are extremely creative and yet they love
Yeah.
the project. Um, we started talking about it about 3 or 4 months ago, and then we knocked out a deal together, and then we made an announcement. What, a week ago?
Yeah.
And that announcement got picked up. What was the magazine that we did the announcement in?
It was, I believe, IGN.
Yeah, IGN, which is the magazine for video games. And then from there, once we did the IGN piece, that piece got picked up by everybody. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's still going.
People are excited.
So yeah, I mean, and if you listen to some of the comments from the audience around the world, is he going to do splits? Is he going to do this? Is he going to do that in the game? What's the character going to do? A few years ago, AI took the cost of video games down tremendously because it builds the infrastructure. You still need the creative team to really come up with the game and the gameplay. But in terms of a lot of the architecture, AI has taken that cost down tremendously. And so we're very, very excited by that. And Warner Brothers made a deal with us to take Kickboxer um, Armageddon, which is the third installment of Kickboxer, and they're releasing the movie in the U.S. and Canada sometime around November to Christmas of next year. So we're very, very excited by that. They just did my last film, Gunner, with Luke Hemsworth and Morgan Freeman, and they did very well on that. And so I'm excited because we started with Kickboxer with independent distributors as an independent movie, and now it's moved itself up into a major distributor. the second largest studio in the world. So um, we're
Yeah, yeah,
excited, and because you're going to get the kind of promotions and you're going to get out to the audience that you want, you know. When you work your ass off for years to do something, it's very difficult. I applaud any filmmaker that can make a movie because it's very difficult to put it together on an independent level. And so to be able to actually get it to the audience and let them enjoy it would be great.
yeah, yeah. And I think I think this year, probably a good year for adapting movie properties. For example, the Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. That game came out last year and became a nominee for best game, nominated for best game of the year. And so there's a lot of just gamers that want to feel like they're part of that world, like either it's Indiana Jones or Kickboxer. And so I want to know with this one whether you can go into detail on the type of gameplay that people are going to see, whether it's third person, and then whether it's going to be, of course, people want to know if they're going to be playing Jean-Claude Van Damme's version, etc.
Well, so I can tell you this, it's a brawler game. And as a brawler game at the beginning, what I'm told, and believe me, I am not the creative behind. I'm the creative behind the story, and I want to make sure that it's true to the franchise because I know what my audience likes. But I'm certainly not the creative when it comes to actually creating this architecture for the game. It's a brawler game. It's going to be a first-person brawler game to start with, okay? And you're going to, of course, be playing all these characters that are going to be coming at you, okay? Of course, we have rights to several of the characters that you mentioned, including a lot of the UFC stars, et cetera, which are going to be coming. They're not going to be released immediately. And so I think those are called skins, and you end up being able to upgrade yourself and start playing skins uh, and being one of these characters. And then their plan is to open it up so that you can actually have partners around the world, and you're going to be playing with partners around the world, et cetera, et cetera. So as it evolves, you're going to be able to have all your dreams come true. I know with Carnivis, when they first released it a year or so ago, in a very what they call a beta form, I think.
Yeah.
They a bunch of people jumped on and played it. About 40,000 is what Jeremy told me, and then they gave notes and they said, you should do this and you should do that and make this better and so on and so forth. And they listened to their game playing audience and they made all those adjustments. And so we would love to do the same thing. We'd love to release the game in and around within about a month or so of the movie that's being released by Warner's. And then we'd love for the audience to get involved and get vested and say, guys, it'd be really cool if this can happen, that can happen, and we could be here and we could do that, and so on and so forth. And then I believe they're going to, with all of us, sit down and say, hey, this is what the audience wants. And, we want to always, with gameplay, you want to deliver to the audience. And so they're very open to that, and they've been very successful at it. I mean, Call of Duty is a pretty successful game.
Oh yeah, it's big.
you know, so they really know how to work this, and that we're planning to release it on Steam.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Yeah.
But Fortnite, I do know about. So Fortnite's all about the skins and releasing things. So what I'm getting a sense is that this is going to be not just a one-off where it just feels like you're going to continue just creating more content for this. Am I correct?
Oh, of course.
After it's been released.
Of course. And if you look at the first Kickboxer that we remade, and then the second one, and the third one now that you're going to see shortly, you're going to see that we expand the world in a big, big way. And we're planning a television series as well that expands the
Television.
world in even a bigger way with a brother that nobody's ever met before. And
Mm-hmm.
so we have a lot of plans. But first and foremost, it's just wonderful to see the reaction from the gaming audience that's looking forward to this. I've been going back and forth with Jean-Claude. He left me a voice message the other day. I think he's in Phuket right now, and he's in contact with me because we've got some plans for some other things together. So
Oh yeah, and I think with like Bloodsport, Kickboxer, the thing that makes it very special is the music. And I was wondering if the game's gonna have that aspect of that '80s nostalgia of the music.
I can't seem to get out of that, brother. That's when I was in high school and college. So that's the kind of stuff that has inspired me. And retro games are in, I'm told, and retro movies seem to be in. '80s now seems to be something that everybody kind of likes. Quentin Tarantino has capitalized on that in a big way.
Oh yeah,
So
for sure.
I think that we're going to stay with that vibe. And I love really good music. If you see my last film, Gunner, you'll see how we've explored music throughout the action in a completely different way. I love music that goes the other way. I don't believe in heavy-handed music. I believe you should actually do the opposite during an action scene.
Oh yeah. And let's say with Armageddon, you're gonna have Scott Adkins, you're gonna have Mark Dacascos, and both legendary just action stars. So I don't know if it's ever because you're dealing with all these talent, and I don't know if it's hard for you to try to focus on like, oh, I want this person, and just try to focus on that.
Well, come on. I mean, Scott, well, what can I say? He's amazing. He's probably one of the most prolific and eloquent uh, martial artists, actors alive. What can you say? And he's perfect for us. Mark Dacascos as well, and a very nice man. And both of them were villains in John Wick,
Oh yeah.
so they belong in the franchise. We're looking at people, I'm looking up on the board right now as we're talking, but we're looking at people like Jorge Masvidal, who's a UFC superstar now. I think he's in bare knuckle fighting. Perhaps we're going to bring Brian Shaw, who is one of the strongest men in the world, also. Uh, we've got some, this is very similar to one of the Bruce Lee films that the name escapes me for the moment. Game of Death. So this is very similar in tone to Game of Death.
Wow.
So if he had to fight one Ultimate Fighter, our leading man in the first two Kickboxers, in this particular one at the very end, he's probably going to need to fight six on three different levels,
I love that.
and
I
they're
love that
all
each. Yeah.
and they're all
Each.
going to be they're all going to be incredible martial artists. So, and we're talking about having a few of the guys that we had in the previous movies probably do a reprise. So that might be George St. Pierre. It might be a few other UFC superstars. We're still in talks about that. But you know me, I mean, Paige Van Zant is going to come into this and she's going to play a really cool role in the part of Briscoe. And every one of these people that I bring in, I always try to make sure that they have a signature action role.
Oh yeah, and then that's what I like about these movies that you do bring in some of the signature things that I think like when I'm watching these movies, like for example, Jean-Claude Van Damme being blind. I feel like that's like the more enhanced version of him being blinded in Bloodsport and stuff
Right.
like that. And yeah, no, I can't wait for when the game comes out when Armageddon comes out. There's a lot of stuff ahead. And I guess my last question for you before we close this out would be just what do you want people to just get out of all of these movies? Like just because you do, you not only do martial arts films, you do all types of films, and so it's not like you're pigeonholing yourself to one. So um, I guess the sky's the limit for you, right?
Well, I mean, look, entertainment goes back thousands of years, and entertainment is about you being able to go in to a theater or at home now. Everybody's got a big screen, and to let yourself go so that you can forget about your life and your troubles or not your troubles and escape for about an hour and a half. And I think everybody needs that. If you like comedy, if you like action, if you like romance, whatever it is that you like, if we can provide that form of escape and if you can live vicariously through one of my characters, great. and you just, crack a beer, have some friends over, and enjoy the film. Don't take it too seriously. It's a movie, but emotionally and psychologically, escape is a big thing. You can't put a price tag on escape. I think it really helps to feed our soul, and especially when you have a character that you can live vicariously through who does the right thing. So I think the world needs that. And, martial arts puts out respect, it puts out honor, it puts out loyalty, it puts out a number of things that I think the world needs.
Oh yeah, especially with the things I love about these movies, like the training sequences, because I feel like those are important in the character's growth, and like they're not the best, so they gotta keep training to become the best. Yeah.
Well, look, if you know anything about martial arts, you see these guys who have trained their entire life and they're not hooked up to wires. They're doing some crazy things, some really physical things. They're some of the best athletes in the world. And you have to think to yourself, you know something? If I commit myself to this and I put in the time to train, like these guys put in the time to train, I might be able to be my own version of a superhero. So, without having to be painted by visual effects guys. So I think,
Yeah, for sure.
you
But
know,
yeah, Dimitri, I don't know, any last words before we end this?
that's it for me. I mean,
Yeah.
so make sure that you reach out to our people when we do the premiere. You
Yeah,
should come up and you should come up and see the premiere.
for sure.
You've got
Definitely
an
down for the premiere.
invitation. All right.
All right, Dimitri, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. And yeah, so video game, Kickboxer, and then Armageddon. Definitely check those out when it comes out. And yeah, hopefully to see you soon.
All right. I appreciate your time, John.
All right, Dimitri, take care.
Take care. Bye bye.